Tonight, the world's happiest countries are in the spotlight. But are these countries as happy as they claim to be? And a disturbing xenophobic encounter with an Edmonton Muslim family goes viral. And later in the show, we speak to an up-and-coming Muslim artist and what spoken word means to her.
I think, when you do have a gift or a talent, it's not really hard. It's not really easy for you to see it.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. I'm Saamiyah Syed. Who lays claim to be the title of the world's most merry citizens? As per the World Happiness Report, the honor of being the happiest populace lies with Finland, Denmark, Iceland, Israel, and the Netherlands. In stark contrast, the Palestinians, who have navigated through decades of Israeli military occupation, find themselves ranked at the 99th spot. Each year, a United Nations affiliated body compiles a report that arranges nations based on their degrees of happiness. This assessment draws from Gallup surveys, where several thousand participants from each country provide personal ratings of their own lives on a scale from 0 to 10. In essence, this life evaluation represents an individual's subjective viewpoint on their satisfaction in different life areas. This data is subsequently amalgamated with additional factors and then published in the form of the annual World Happiness Report. Nonetheless, critics have spotlighted significant contradictions, oversights, and biases within the system. There's a bias towards affluent Western nations. The report does not take into consideration centuries of colonial exploitation that led to their wealth accumulation. The majority of these happiest countries this year are situated in Europe. Finland, for instance, retains its top spot as the world's happiest country for the 6th consecutive year. However, this country also records some of the highest rates of antidepressant usage in Europe. Iceland, ranked second, holds the highest reported antidepressant usage in the entirety of Europe. Similar patterns emerge in Sweden, which is ranked 6th. An alternative report known as the Global Happiness Report designates China as the globe's happiest country. The Jewish and Muslim communities have expressed deep distress and sadness in a response to a disturbing series of hate graffiti messages targeting Jews and Arabs. These offensive messages were spray painted on underpass in Winnipeg's Point Douglas district. The graffiti includes offensive symbols like a swastika and hurtful phrases such as Hail Hitler and KK Canada. The original date the graffiti was sprayed is unclear. However, the city of Winnipeg promptly deployed a crew to clean up the graffiti and successfully confirmed its removal the same day. Marvin Rotrand, the national director of B'nai B'rith Canada's League for Human Rights, says he is shocked but not surprised upon encountering such anti-Semitic messages. Yusuf Sufi, a consultant with the Manitoba Islamic Association, warned that any form of threat, whether in the form of graffiti or verbal abuse, can escalate into more overt acts of violence. According to city records, there has been a rise in requests for the removal of hate-related graffiti in recent years. Just this year alone, they have received 189 such requests, compared to 169 in the previous year. Edmonton police have charged a man for hate-motivated altercation after a viral video shows a disturbing encounter with a Muslim family near White Avenue. The incident involves the man threatening and exposing himself to a family consisting of a couple and their 15-year-old son. Police say the man made xenophobic and homophobic remarks at the family. Given the nature of the offensive comments, the Edmonton Police Service mobilized its hate crimes unit to collaborate on the investigation. On Tuesday, the police took 29-year-old Thurman Britsky into custody. He now faces charges of 3 counts of uttering threats and 1 count of indecent act. The Edmonton Police Service Hate Crimes Unit is recommending a specific section of the criminal code be applied. This provision would enable the courts to consider enhancing Britsky's sentence if evidence supports the conclusion that the offense was motivated by hate. To hear more on the art of spoken word, stay tuned and we'll be right back. Now we have a very special guest joining us in the studios today. Sister Labibah Salim is a rising artist. Her spoken word is dramatic and leaves an impact and captures themes of resilience, perseverance, and strength. She has shared it with audiences at Muslim Fest 2022 and the recent Reviving the Islamic Spirit, or RAS, conference. Welcome, Sister Labibah, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here with you all.
Walaikum assalam, and we're super excited to speak to you today. Sister Labibah, I'm wondering, how did you discover your talent or skill for spoken word?
Wow, I didn't think I even had it in me. I think it took me a while to really realize that it's actually a gift and a talent. I think, when you do have a gift or a talent, it's not really hard. It's not really easy for you to see it. Everyone else seems to see it first. And so for me, it took me a while to recognize what an impact I do have with my words and the way I do say them. So alhamdulillah, I'm so grateful to be realizing that it is a gift, that it is a talent that I do have. And alhamdulillah, day by day, I'm taking it.
So you said you didn't really realize that yourself, someone else helped you. Who was that? How did they come up to you and say, you have a talent, you should go and share that with people?
So my journey actually dates back to grade 10. That's when I started writing. It was just a normal English class. We had the assignment to write spoken word and, poetry and things like that. And, at first I was like, okay, this is kind of an easy assignment. I'm going to put in quotations, but everyone around me seemed to be struggling with it. And so I was like, okay, why am I not struggling? Why am I not taking the time? I find this to be such an easy assignment. And so we had to write a whole spoken word and we had to stand in front of the class and present it. And everyone afterwards came up to me and was like, oh my goodness, that was amazing. You did that. Are you sure nobody wrote that for you? Even the teacher, my actually grade 10 teacher, came up to me afterwards, my English grade 10 teacher. He came up to me and was like, oh my God, that was amazing. Are you sure? Like, who helped you with this? And I was like, no one helped me. And so that was, kind of the beginning for me. I didn't realize what an impact it had on the people. It felt good, obviously, to perform, but I didn't realize how much it would change the way people viewed me, especially after I presented. So for me, I'd like to thank my grade 10 teacher first, and then obviously the audience for giving me, kind of that feedback because it impacted them. And I always pray that, it impacts people in the best way that it can.
And that's a beautiful story right there.
Yeah.
What emotions or themes are you hoping to capture and convey through your spoken word pieces?
There's a range of emotions. I can't tell people how to feel. I think everyone is open to feeling the way that they should. And for me, I realized that when I do perform, it depends on what I'm performing. If I'm performing on themes of courage, strength and things like that, I do want the audience to feel encouraged. I want them to feel courageous. I want them to feel like they can take on their lives. But if I'm performing on themes of sadness and, hope and things like that, I want my audience to feel, a sense of hope, a sense of sadness. And, that's what I want them to be, convey from my spoken word. And for me, the other thing that I want them to feel is a reflection, right? Like, as much as I want my words to be impactful, I want them to be reflected upon. I try to keep my spoken word to be very simple, very well, all the words are there, all the words are simple. So then it's, there's no too much interpretation to it, but I want them to make someone, feel a certain sense of reflection, as I said. So it's important for me that they feel that.
Can you share more about your creative process? How do you get started on a piece? And then where do you go from there?
Okay, so for me, the first step always is praying about it, because I realize that nothing ever comes from anybody except Allah. And that for me is so important, that I involve Allah in my creative process, in my writing process. So I involve Him first and foremost, because I pray to Allah the way I want my audience to feel, the way that I'm impacting them. For me, I start with Allah, as I said. So I pray, I do 2 rak'ahs if it is, or make dua anytime. So that's kind of where I start off. And the second process is I get the title, I get one blank piece of paper, and I write everything that comes to mind when I think of that word. So if it is courage, what makes courage? Who has courage? Why do they have courage? How do they get courage? Things like that. So I place it kind of making different flowcharts, and I make multiple of them for me, right? So it would be like the first one would be the first draft of the flowchart. The second would be the second draft of the flowchart. The third would be the third draft of the flowchart. And then make multiple, and then kind of take all these ideas, so just place them out, look at them, bring all the big ideas, even the little ones actually, and just bring them all onto one piece of paper. And then from there, I start writing, my spoken word. So I'll take like what jumps out to me the most. When I think courage, who do I think courage represents? And, things like that. So, and then I slowly put them into like lines, little stanzas. And then trust me, when I tell you the creative process is so messy, but when it comes together, that's when I really that's when I really feel it for myself. So when I feel it, I know that my audience will feel it, and that's kind of how I come up with everything.
It sounds a lot like an essay writing process, or at least my essay writing process.
Yes.
But I'm glad to see that it has a much more creative outcome in your case. I'm wondering, you've written, I'm sure, many pieces, but if you can choose a favorite piece that you've written, what would it be?
My favorite piece actually would be the one that I wrote on courage, and I talked about what courage is, because after performing so many times online, and that, which is where I found like my biggest platform, and that's where I discovered what this means to me. I realized that courage is about standing, tall. It's remembering that you may fall, but it doesn't come from things big and small, but it's truly open to all. So it's the idea that courage is something that comes from like there's no like proper source for courage, right? Like even when you watch shows and you watch movies, they show courage as being like, something that you have to have within you. It's something that is instilled in you, kind of, and you just have to pick it up and go with it. And for me, that was the best piece, and it's a all-time favorite for me, only because I've performed it so many times. I love it, and it gives me a sense of embodiment, right? So I embody it every time I step on a stage, every time every time I'm standing in front of everybody, performing. That is my spoken word coming to life all over again, multiple times. So that for me is a favorite.
Now, you had a little bit of a debut last year where you made your way onto the official stage. You were asked to perform at Muslim Fest and then also at RIS. Can you reflect on your experience? How were both of those performances?
Alhamdulillah, I'm so grateful for those opportunities. I realized that there's not a lot of people doing what I do in terms of the way that I look like as well. In the Muslim community, we come from like different backgrounds, we come from different races, we come from, all these kinds of, different as I said, backgrounds. And so for me, I realized that when it comes to doing spoken word, I'm usually sometimes the only girl that is performing, right? And I'm sometimes the only girl that is doing this kind of art. So a lot more girls relate to me. A lot of the girls come up to me and they're like, "You're doing this? You're up there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of am." I didn't realize, It took me a while, but alhamdulillah, a lot of the artists are men. A lot of spoken word artists are men. A lot of nasheed artists are men, right? Because, as women, alhamdulillah, Islam gives us the opportunity to cover ourselves, to stay modest, but we also do kind of have the opportunity to still share our talent with the world, obviously in the most modest way possible. So alhamdulillah, I'm so grateful for that opportunity, and it has given me time to reflect on that. I need to empower more women and more girls to do the right thing in the best way that they can, especially in sharing the world with their talents. There's so many people who look up to me now, and I'm like, oh God, I didn't know I could do all of this, right? I mean, you know that it comes with an impact, but you don't realize what that impact really is and how it is.
Exactly. And you said that you never thought that one day you would be performing on stage,
Yes.
and for all those artists who are out there watching today, what advice would you give to them to go out there and pursue their dreams and talents?
For me, I'd say take that opportunity. No matter how big or how small it is, take it. That's your starting point. We talk about everyone's origin story, but this is yours. So take that opportunity and take it and run with it because you never know where it will take you.
Exactly. Well said, Sister Labibah. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing about your origin story, and all the best for your future performances.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. That's it from our Toronto studios tonight. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more Canadian Muslim content. Stay safe, and until next time.